Have you noticed when Chanel does a campaign, they never focus on the materials for the handbags, they never focus on the features. Instead, they put Brad Pitt and Penelope Cruz in this movie and they create this entire narrative around it. And the bag is there, but the focus is not the product, the focus is not the bag. Why? Because luxury brands understand that in order for you to sell luxury products, you need to create stories around them because stories will always sell better than any kind of product. And in this luxury market, if you're in it, you understand that, in order for me to sell that product, I need to create a narrative around it. I need to create this entire universe, this world that people can step into. And then I use that as the vehicle, right, to get them into the world. And the product is there. The product doesn't even matter at that point, as long as the narrative is super strong. So in this video, I'm gonna break down exactly how all of these luxury brands are using storytelling to sell products for 10 times, 20 times, 100 times the price in the normal market. And obviously how you can take these exact principles and techniques and frameworks, because I'm big on understanding the psychology behind it, and then how you can apply these to your own brands. Regardless of the industry that you're in, you don't have to, sell a $10,000 bag in order for you to apply these principles. So let's dive in because this is going to be super interesting. So this is how to use storytelling to sell luxury products. Let's go in. Now, here's what you will learn in this video. You're going to learn why luxury brands never talk about features and what they sell instead. I just mentioned it, obviously stories, but we're going to dive deeper into that. You're going to learn the psychology that makes people pay 50 times or even 100 times more for the same product. We're going to take a look at some case studies from brands like Chanel, Rolex, and Apple, Louis Vuitton, and the exact storytelling frameworks luxury brands use to engineer desire. This is going to be really interesting. And finally, how you will be able to apply this to your brand regardless of what industry or niche you're in. So let's go. This is the storytelling advantage that I want to share in here. The biggest problem with features, and again, this applies, you can think of any industry. You can be in online education and fashion. I'm personally working with a lot of people in the fashion space. The thing is with features, most brands sell like this. Here's what the product does, right? Here are the specs. Here's why it's better than the competition. But the problem is with this is that's a logical argument. And logical arguments get logical responses, like price comparison, like shopping around, like this thing, I'll think about it, which I'm sure if you're in sales, if you sell something, if you have a brand, you've probably heard this, especially in the online education. And this is the biggest problem with this because it's all logic. It's all you trying to justify the features, the product. And that obviously brings in this idea of comparison, this idea of, I want to shop around, I want to find a better option. And the thing is with luxury brands, this is what they understand. They understand that stories bypass logic completely, entirely. And they go straight to emotion, to identity, to desire. So it's way deeper than just some features, way deeper than the specs. Because when you hear a story as a human being, your brain doesn't analyze it. We don't analyze stories, right? We don't sit there try and compare stories. You've never done that with like a brand like Chanel. I mentioned it earlier. We're going to take a look at the case study. It's not like you compare the story in that campaign from them to a story from like Rolex or Apple. You don't do that. The human brain basically experiences the story. You feel something, right? You feel something. And decisions are made from feeling, right? Are almost impossible to argue against. Decisions that are made from an emotional standpoint are completely impossible to argue against. They're completely, when you make a decision like that based on a story, it's all about the story. It's never about the product. You're not going to compare the products like that. So this is what luxury brands understand. And this idea of logic versus story is super simple. So the logic goes, and on an example, it's like this watch has a, Swiss movement, sapphire crystal, and 100 millimeter like water resistance, whatever. And the story is this watch was on the wrist of explorers who climbed Everest, astronauts who walked on the moon, champions who stood at the top of the podium. So it's this idea of comparison, which is logic, right? And desire. right? Which is story. So this is where you want to be. And I'm going to walk you through it. So what do luxury brands actually sell with this? The illusion is that, luxury brands aren't selling products. They're selling a narrative about who you become when you own that particular product. So the bag isn't just a bag. The bag isn't just a bag. It's a symbol that you've arrived. The watch isn't just a timepiece. It's proof of your achievement, right? And again, this transcends industries. The perfume isn't a secret. It's the essence of a sophisticated woman. So it's deeper than, again, just a product. And this is what I like to call the identity equation that is literally behind every sort of luxury purchase. It starts like this. When I buy this product, I become this type of person, and then the world will see me as this. And again, that's the equation behind every luxury purchase. The product is just the physical token that represents the actual transformation. And when you can take a screenshot of this, when you literally apply this identity equation to your brand, to whatever it is that you're selling, you will see that people think like this. If you really want to become a luxury brand, an iconic brand, as I like to always say, I help creators, I help people become icons in their industry. This is how you got to think. This has got to be like whenever people interact with your brand, this is the process that they have to go through, the identity equation. Now, here are some 4 psychological payoffs that people usually think when it comes to this luxury space. The first one is status, right? So I'm above the masses. I've made it. I'm in a different category. The second one is belonging. So I'm part of an elite world, a tribe of sophisticated people just like myself. 3, identity, right? So this product reflects who I really am, my taste, my values, my aspirations. And last but not least, transformation. So when I own this product, I become a better, elevated version of myself. These are the psychological payoffs that people essentially think about on a subconscious level when they purchase something from a luxury brand. So again, keep these in mind because they're super important. Now, we're going to go through some case studies because I love doing this. I love breaking down the psychology behind it from like actual brands that are doing it. And then obviously we're going to take a look at the actual storytelling frameworks that you're going to be able to apply. So this is going to be super practical, nothing too abstract. And let's dive in. So, case study number 1, Chanel. We got this campaign here with Brad Pitt. So Chanel doesn't sell products. They sell the legend of Coco, right? So let's quickly go through it. It's basically about a woman who broke every single rule, who liberated women from corsets, who had affairs with royalty, who built an empire from nothing, right? So it's a story there. Every Chanel product is a relic of her rebellion, a piece of that mythology, a piece of that myth, right? A piece of that entire narrative and story. So what they did with this campaign is fantastic, right? Because this iconic handbag campaign with Brad Pitt and Penelope Cruz, essentially the bag is barely the focus in this campaign. And you can go look it up right now. They got the videos, I believe, on YouTube. They don't even like mention the bag like that. The bag is there, sure. It's in the movie. But this is a narrative device tied to nostalgia, longing, reinvention. So they're not saying, buy this bag directly because it's well made. They're saying this bag is part of a story that you actually want to live in, right? So it's very interesting. Now, the next case study is from the famous Hermes, the Birkin bag, because the whole brand story around this is they do not advertise aggressively. They barely need to, right? Did you see like aggressive advertising from them? No. Why? Because the story does the actual work. The story does the work. So the Birkin bag, named after Jane Birkin, was handcrafted by one artisan. It's basically taking around like 18 to 24 hours to make, and a wait list for that can last years. So this is what they're doing with the bag. And the technique is super simple. They use scarcity as the narrative. So they create an entire narrative, an entire story around this idea that I cannot easily get the bag. I have to apply, I have to get on a wait list, right? And it takes a long time for me to get it. So this is the entire narrative. And the wait list, again, is the story. The difficulty of getting one is what makes owning one meaningful, right? So, for us human beings, like whenever something feels out of reach or whenever something feels like on this pedestal and we have to work for it, we have to like really, really be hyped about it and like go into this entire process of like, I gotta wait 6 months, I gotta wait 12 months. It creates anticipation. It creates like it drives up the desire like crazy. So this is the psychological trigger in this. You're not just buying a bag, you're being accepted into an exclusive club. And the wait list is the initiation ritual, right? So the bag is the membership badge. Is again, it's crazy because you might sit there, you might think like, why? Like I never understood like why are people spending like $25,000 on this type of bag is because of this. It's because they feel, they sell exclusivity through manufactured difficulty. So by the time you actually get the bag, you even forgot about, like, not forgot, but it's not really about the bag itself. It's about the fact that you got accepted. So it's almost like this club that you got accepted into, right? So you bypass, you went through the wait list, you waited 6 months, 12 months, even 24 months, and you finally got it. It's about the wait. It's about essentially the waiting period. It's not about the product. And I know, again, you might sit there and you might say, okay, like who would actually wait for this? Well, again, you know what they say, if nobody would buy it, nobody would, they wouldn't produce it anymore. They wouldn't sell the products. Now, another case study here from Rolex. Their brand story is Rolex never talks about watch specifications, right? You got plenty of companies out there that mention like, yeah, this watch is built like this, it has this motion, it has this. Rolex does not do that, right? Never comparing movements or materials. Instead, what they do is obviously they sell stories of achievement, exploration, endurance. So their watches were on the wrists of people who climbed Everest, who dove to the bottom of the ocean, who stood on podiums at Wimbledon, right? This is what it's about with them, achievement. And the technique, it's simple, association with greatness. This is how they are being positioned as a watch brand. Because the watch then becomes a witness to extraordinary human achievements, right? So when you wear it, you're signaling that you belong in that company. And the psychological trigger with this is that you're not just buying a timepiece. You're not buying a timepiece. You're buying proof that you've achieved something, that you've earned the right to wear what champions wear. So they sell achievement. This is huge. They sell achievement, not the accuracy of the actual watch. Because obviously you could market the watch like that, right? Like you could say, this will show you the time. This is so accurate. It's got this like movement, whatever milliseconds, whatever. That shit does not, like, even at the top like echelon, people don't really care about the specifications that much. They care about, it's super simple. What does this product do for me in terms of status, in terms of identity? Who do I become by purchasing this product? What kind of signal does it send? And this is what they do with Rolex. Now, let's go through these storytelling frameworks that you can use to sell luxury products. And again, I want to highlight this. These can be applied to literally every single industry, okay? Every single industry. I work one-on-one with people. By the way, if you want to work with me, we got the link down below. You can also book a consultation call with me so that we can map out your brand. But I work with people from, like founders of like multiple companies, private equity, venture capital, fashion, people in the fitness space, fashion stylists, mindset coaches, people from like all around the world, all kinds of industries. And we use the same thing, right? Because I'm big on this idea of when you're building a brand, what is the story of that? I recently had a call with an amazing founder of this big clothing brand in the US, right? And we essentially had this sit down for like 3 hours. mapped out his entire narrative for the brand, and it was the exact same thing. I told him, you're not in the business of just like selling clothes for men. You're in the business of selling a transformation for men who lost their confidence, for men who lost themselves, for men who don't even feel like, they can get the respect in the rooms that they walk into, for men who are feeling lost in their relationship. So this brand will be then on a subconscious level associated with that transformation. And when you build a narrative, when you build a strategy, when you build the entire marketing campaign around that, that's when you win. And that's when you go premium. Because everybody else is focused on, this cashmere sweater, whatever. Nobody truly gives a fuck about like a cashmere sweater like that. And if they do, sure, they might spend 100, 200 bucks on it, but they will not spend 5,000 if there's not a story behind it. So this is what I want to highlight. I got a lot of people essentially asking me like, Andre, this is all amazing, but can I use this for, my fashion brand? I had somebody recently book a call with me and they own a furniture company. And again, it's the same exact thing. You can use these regardless of the industry. So let's go through them. Framework number one, it's the ABT structure. So this is the structure for it. You got ends. This is basically the setup of the world, the agreement on reality. Then you have buts. So I'm going to walk you through the structure, how it works, why it works, and all of that. We have buts. You introduce the conflict in here. You introduce tension. You introduce the problem. And then you provide you provide the resolution through your brands. This is the ABT structure. Why does this work? It's because this is the most versatile framework, storytelling framework for any kind of brand. It works for ads, landing pages, video scripts, social posts, sales conversations. It's because it's punchy, emotionally gripping, and it follows how humans naturally process stories. So I wanted to start with this on purpose because this is basically the foundation framework for storytelling and for using storytelling in marketing. So let's see how it works. Let's see some examples, right, from iconic brands. So we got Apple in here in 1984, right, with this campaign for the Macintosh. So their ends, so remember ABT, right? Their ends was society conforms in a dystopian world following Big Brother. This was the context then. This was the world. The but in here, conformity stifles innovation and crushes individuality. And the therefore was the resolution was that Macintosh disrupts everything and positioning Apple as the rebel liberator. And this was the campaign. Again, it wasn't about the Macintosh. The Macintosh was cool. Was it literally the best product with the best specifications? Probably not. Regardless, they focused on the story, the ABT, right? Let's see another one from Nike. Again, this is probably one of the best examples ever when it comes to positioning like that. So Nike would just do it. They had the ends. Athletes train relentlessly and push their limits every day, but excuses and mental barriers hold them back from greatness. And the resolution, therefore, was Nike gear and mindset propel victory, inspiring global action. So it wasn't, again, about the products. It was about them inspiring athletes, inspiring people in general to go for it, right? Just do it. Because this tagline alone works because let's say I'm somebody that's not even like into sports like that. I've never stepped into a gym. I want to wear Nike. Why? Because it gives me the feeling that I'm actually going for something. I'm taking risks. You know what I mean? So this is basically how they applied that, the framework. Another one is Airbnb. This is a really cool one. So they had this, this campaign with we imagine a world where you can belong anywhere. This was the campaign for them. And again, the ends, let's go through the structures. It was travelers seek connection and authentic local immersion, but hotels deliver sterile, cookie cutter tourist experiences. Therefore, the solution for that is Airbnb unlocks the ability to live like a local through hosts, stories, and community, right? This is how they apply the ABT framework. Now, how you can actually use this ABT framework for your brand and content. It's super simple and again, super straightforward for your hook, right? let's say this is an example. You can take this, you can apply it to whatever brand you have, whatever content you're doing, but it's like, and you want to grow, but the gurus teach manipulation. Therefore, here's a better way, right? For your offer. And you're an expert, but nobody knows who you are. Therefore, we build your cold brand. And this is from sort of like my perspective, like how I typically use this framework, because this is what I'm doing. I'm literally telling everybody, like, yeah, all of these gurus scream about copy paste funnels. They sell you in a program with 500 other people, a fucking course with 3,000 videos, right? That you're never gonna watch. And therefore, you end up in this situation where you don't know, you don't have the clarity in terms of what is the brand that I want to build. What is the unique angle that I can take in the market? What is the positioning? And everybody's this fucking copy paste clone. And I hate that. And I'm going against that. And this is my ABT, right? For content, for example, most brands sell features, but features can be compared. Therefore, luxury brands sell stories. So again, you can literally take this same exact framework and spin it into your own angle. Now, let's go to the second one. This is also something that I'm constantly talking about, and it's this idea of the hero's journey. So this is the structure for it. You're basically, so first of all, you got to think of yourself, and I know to some people this sounds weird, but you got to think of yourself as this hero in your movie, especially when it comes to growing your personal brand or your brand in general. If you want to be the face behind the brand, you gotta stop looking at yourself like this regular human being, and you almost gotta turn yourself into the cinematic hero. And what does the hero go through, right? They have an origin story. They live somewhere in an ordinary world. They are being called to an adventure, and they go through this entire transformation. And this is what you gotta map out. So the structure for this is, you have the hero. They're being called to the adventure. They face trials. They go through a transformation, and then they return changed, right? So how do luxury brands actually use this framework? Super simple. The customer is the hero, right? So the products, you can look at, that's the thing. With the hero's journey, you can look at yourself as the hero, or as the or like the customer as the hero in this situation. So the product is the magical tool that enables transformation, right? And again, if we're talking about online education and you building your personal brand, you can look at yourself as the hero. The product and what you're doing, your expertise helped you, saved you out of a situation, transformed you, and then you sell that as the vehicle for your customers, if that makes sense. So Rolex, for example, positions the watch as the talisman worn during the journey. Louis Vuitton positions the bag as the companion for the adventure. Apple positions the devices as, the weapons against conformity. Now, for you, how you can apply this, again, think of yourself as the hero, or your customer as a hero being on a journey, and they want transformation. So you have to position your offer as the thing that enables that very transformation. The guides, the weapon, the actual key, right? So this is the hero's journey. The next thing in here, the next one, Freytag's pyramid, right? So this is the structure. You have basically exposition, you have rising action, you have climax, falling action, and then resolution. So this is, again, another framework that you can implement whenever you're making content, whenever you're working on a campaign, even when we're talking about email marketing. All of this can be applied. So how do luxury brands use it? Well, Chanel uses this for Coco's story. So the exposition of her humble beginnings, the rising action of her rebellion against fashion norms, the climax, right, of her becoming an icon, and the resolution of her legacy living on in every single product. You see? So again, it's the start, the exposition, and then the exposition here, the rising action of the rebellion, the climax, the falling action, and then the resolution, how that product is being reflected. So for you, use this for your origin story, right? Use it for your origin story, your brand's documentary, your Instagram stories. Literally, I can name every single format and every single touch point in here, but literally it's everything. You have to use this in every single thing. You have to understand that you need to build tension. If you want to sell at really high prices, you got to build tension. And again, regardless of what sort of like market you're in, you need to apply this. You need to create a peak moment, resolve into who you are now, or what the brand is now, and what you actually offer. Freytag's pyramid, right? Framework number 4, This is the 3-act structure. So let's go through the actual structure of it. So act 1, this is, and you can essentially see this in movies as well, and like with artists making music, so it transcends industries. So act 1 is setup. You establish the world and the character. Act 2 is confrontation. You introduce the conflict, struggle, the tension. And act 3, it's again resolution. So you see there are some similarities between these. The transformation, the new reality, right? So how luxury brands use it. Before, for example, you were ordinary, unnoticed, blending in, the struggle, you worked, you achieved, you earned something. But after, now you wear the watch, carry the bag, signal who you've become, right? Before, the struggle, and the after, right? So for you, right? This works amazing for case studies. It works amazing for product launches, right? You have to show the before, you have to dramatize the struggle, and you have to reveal the actual transformation. Always think about it like this: I have to provide the setup, I have to provide a confrontation, I got to talk about the conflict, I got to build the tension, and then I got to provide the resolution. I got to provide like what was the transformation and what was the new reality? What's the new reality, right? Framework number 5 in here, this is the last one. This is the lifestyle saga. And this is really, again, it's very similar to the other ones, but it's just a different sort of framework and way of looking at it. So the structure of it is, instead of talking about the product, show a day in the life of someone living in an elevated world with that product. And the product appears naturally as part of their ritual. Chanel did this with the campaign that we talked about with the bag, right? So, how luxury brands use it is basically campaigns like in hotel lobbies, private jets, luxury locations, luxury settings, aesthetics, all of that. The product is never the focus, right? So, it's just there, and it's just part of the character's world. So the psychology behind it all, this creates aspiration. Every single luxury brand is doing this, every single one, because you don't just want the product, you want the entire life, and the product becomes the entry point, right? So for you, show the life that your customers want, like get them to aspire to be like that. Then let your offer, your product appear as a natural part of that life, and don't just sell the offer. Again, sell the world it actually belongs to. This is the lifestyle saga. So you can look right now, you can Google, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, like every single brand at some point implemented this framework, because it's not about the actual car. It's not about the product. It's about, okay, I see that Aston Martin, for example, I see that in James Bond movies. This is another case study, right? I'm probably going to talk about it in a different video. I see that, and I want an Aston Martin. I might not know anything about the car, but it's not about the car. It's about James Bond, right? It's about me being like James Bond. This is how the psychology works, right? So now that we had a look at all of this, how can you apply everything so you can become an icon in your industry? Let's go through it, right? So step 1 is simple. You got to define the transformation with your brand, with your offer, with your product. What does your customer become when they work with you? Now, what do they get? Who do they become, right? Write that down, because that is what you're actually selling. Again, I mentioned the founder of the clothing brands. This was literally the first step. So what is the actual transformation behind? Like, it's not about the clothes. Let's forget about the fucking clothes for a bit, right? What is the transformation? This is the step 1. Step 2, build your origin myth, right? So what's your story? Not your bio on Instagram. What is your actual legend? What did you overcome as a human being? What do you believe in? What are you fighting against? And turn your background into a narrative people want to be a part of. So you got to map everything out. Again, think of your brand as this complete like movie or myth, right? And then figure out what was the obstacle, what are the things that the brand believes in. Let me just scroll back. What are the things that the brand believes in, and what are you actually fighting against? And then you turn that background into a narrative that people become addicted to. Step 3, you got to create your world. I talked about it plenty of times, but what does life look like for someone in your universe? You got to map everything else. So, what language do they use? What do they believe? What do they reject? And make your brand feel like a world, not a product. Because again, if we look at Chanel, Chanel is not just the bag, it's not just about the glasses. Rolex is the same thing, it's not just about the watch, it's an entire world there. Now, step four, including the other frameworks, but especially the ABT, use this in everything that you do. Use this in your marketing, use this in your content, use this in everything, because every piece of content, every sales page, every video can have all of this here, right? So again, and here's the world, but here's the problem or the tension. Therefore, here's how we resolve it. And obviously, with this, keep in mind it's always story first, offer second. Always, right? Always. Like you can apply this in every single thing. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is with this, you want to essentially shift your entire perspective when it comes to marketing, when it comes to branding, when it comes to positioning, messaging, attracting your ideal clients. You got to shift everything. And you got to understand that you're not selling a course, just a course. If you're selling that, you're not just selling a service, a coaching program, or a simple product. You are selling transformation to other people, whether it's a physical product or a digital product or something like more abstract. It doesn't matter. You're selling transformation, you're selling identity. You should be selling entry into a world. So the story behind it all is what makes that real, is what makes it tangible, right? What makes people pay premium without questioning it. And, to kind of like get personal here, the reason why I'm seeing lately, the reason why like people start working with me and pay me thousands for me to help them build their brand and the angle, the universe, the ecosystem, it's not because, of the fonts that I'm using. It's not because of the funnels. It's not because of the VSLs. It's not about because I'm not selling like a copy paste thing because everybody's different. They pay me because of who I am. And I know it sounds so silly, so simple. And you're like, oh, okay, this sounds good, but like it's so cliche. That's just the way it is. They're paying me because they see the story and the things that I believe in. When I get in a conversation with someone, let's say if you book a call with me one-on-one, I can tell you, just like I'm sitting here, like basically for me, what it was with this entire branding thing is I came from an actual background of building businesses. I built a SaaS company, I built a creative agency, I built a multiple six-figure e-com store where I was selling phone cases, those privacy phone cases. And I saw that, it's not just about the product, it's not about what you're selling, it's about how you position it. And then when I built my personal brand, when I started that at the end of 2023, I realized this space is bullshit. This space is filled with gurus that, again, sell you on a program that you don't really know if it might work or not because it's all copy paste. And I literally hated that because I've invested in mentorship myself. I've seen it firsthand how messed up this space is. I've seen it. And that's why I'm basically going against it. And so the minute I get into a conversation with someone, that's literally, that's literally what they need. It's like they need someone with them to help them build a brand around who they actually are. So I tell you this right now. I submit this to you. If you are actually fucking tired, I know I am, and I know I was. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. If you're tired of the copy paste stuff, if you don't want another group program with 300 other people that you don't care about, and if you're tired of not having the fucking clarity in terms of what do I do to actually build a brand around the kind of person I am, so that I don't burn out, so that I don't go into this like negative downward spiral, send me a message on Instagram or book a call with me down below. And we're going to literally map it all out using these frameworks, but built around you, right? I say this all the time. I'm focused on the person and the story behind the brand. That's why I genuinely consider myself to be the best in this. And I will prove it time and time again as time goes. Because there's nobody, like, it's so much easier to just sell a fucking copy paste thing, a copy paste funnel, flywheel, VSL bullshit, than to take the time to actually break down all of the layers and understand the person that you're talking to, the story behind it, the unique angles that you can play in the market, the positioning. It's so much easier to sell a copy paste bullshit. Now, are people going to get results with that? Probably not. But I'm interested in building icons. This is what I literally have in my bio. Because my thesis is, especially when it comes to building a personal brand, you want to create a story. You want to create a world. You want to create a universe. And there's no end all be all copy paste formula for everybody because we are so different as human beings. And I find that the reason why people burn out so much is because they don't know this. They don't have the clarity. They just have people throwing, templates to them. But creating something iconic, creating a luxury brand in a market cannot be done by templates, right? So you need the clarity. So again, book a call with me down below if you actually want to build a brand around who you are, around your thesis, around your belief system, around the things that you find that are bullshit in your industry. And we're going to build something amazing. I'll see you in the next one.